and we will endeavor to go live on Facebook. Just takes a sec. Well, Mark, I think I've done that so well. I'm 2 minutes ahead. You might like to tap dance or do something fascinating for us all.
Well, fascinating, I'll try and do something, but I don't think I'll tap dance right now. Although it is a tap dance being Lit Balm all these years now. We're on our 4th year, can you believe? And it started because of the pandemic and there was no place to read. So I think really we were the first to do it. Of course, many others followed. And well, we're happy to read wherever we can. But anyway, tonight we're so delighted to have these 5 featured readers. Unfortunately, one of them appears is not well enough to join us tonight, so it'll be 4. But we have tonight Amit Majmudar, Alexis Sears, who is ill, Ryan Wilson, Daniel Tobin, and Matthew Cooperman, and we're delighted to have you in this 4th year of Lit Balm. And before we commence with the proceedings, I'm going to introduce one of our co-hosts, Jeffrey Cyphers-Wright, who received his MFA after studying with Allen Ginsberg. He's best known as what he calls a new romantic poet. He's also a publisher, critic, eco-activist, impresario, filmmaker, puppeteer, and artist. He's the author of 19 books of verse, including Blue Liar and Party Everywhere. His poems have appeared in the Cafe Review, New American Writing, the Brooklyn Rail, and many others. His latest work, a book of sonnets and artwork called Doppelgangster, is just recently out from Madhat Press. Jeff also recently won the Sir Vision James Tate Prize, and he publishes Live Mag. Jeff.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. And it's nice to see everybody here. Such illustrious readers we have today. And I'm going to start with a little sonnet called Lone Czar. Wind flicks diamonds off the Hudson slate, windows tinted black, a purple Mercedes eases up, whumping. A quartet of geese honks. I shadow shadows that have strayed, misfits, statues of puppets that pretend to cry, the possessed or dispossessed, the mad lame. I give up borrowing for Lent. Did you know that honeysuckle is good for snakebite, and Tanawa means fabulous hawk or eagle? My grandson pictures a Yeti utopia. My lover copies designs from a 13th century tapestry. Waiter, there's a griffin in my grimoire. A student throws an arm around her mate. I square off with mist in Washington Square. Yeah, I screwed that up, but I got it right, actually. No, I forgot. This is a different version, but I got you the right version. But, you know, I didn't know what a grimoire was. But I heard it recently, you know, a book of spells. I thought that was so appropriate. I'm probably the only one who didn't know. All right. Let me introduce our host, our beautiful host, Cassandra Atherton. Cassandra is an award-winning prose poet and international expert on prose poetry. Her prose poetry is widely anthologized and has been translated into Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Cassandra has published more than 30 books and is currently writing an illustrated book of prose poetry on the Hiroshima Maidens with funding from the Australia Council and the Victorian government. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry and introduction and co-edited the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She's commissioning editor for Westerly magazine and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia. And Cassandra, how long have you been hosting? For all 4
No, not that. Maybe 2 years.
2 years?
Something about half of the time.
Right.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right,
It was
welcome,
Larissa.
Cassandra. And you are a great host.
Thank you. I do have a prose poem for you today. What a surprise. I'm very excited to be on the Best American Poetry blog again, thanks to Nin, who was talking a little bit about prose poetry. And she put this one up, so I thought I'd read it to you. It's actually an ekphrastic poem after Rossetti's Beata Beatrix. If you elegize me, do it slowly. Don't write a pantoum one evening over a chicken curry or a villanelle on the train between suburban stations. Take your time. Compose a prose poem longhand in a notebook with a fountain pen. Buy an inkwell and fill it with pink ink. Let it stain your writing fingers. Set aside a few nights each month to put in commas and take out adjectives. Picture me in every metonym and alliteration. Imagine us inhabiting the spaces between words. When it's finished, don't publish it. Make a bonfire and watch the paper catch and burn, the letters taking off like hundreds of fireflies into the starless night. So I would like to introduce the incredible Mark Vincennes, who is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He's published over 30 books of poetry, translations, and fiction, including more recently The Pearl Diver of Irunmani with White Pine Press, A Splash of Cave Paint with Spite and Dival, a chapbook and Alphabet of Last Rites with Chavina Bava, and The King of Prussia is Drunk on Stars, which is just out from Lavender Ink. And later this year, The Visitation, a novelette, is coming out from Vision. Mark is also a prolific translator, and the regulars know he has translated from German, Romanian, and French. He's published 11 books of translations, most recently An Audible Blue, Selected Poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist, you know his name, Klaus Merz, which won the 2023 Massachusetts Book Prize for Translated Literature. His own work has been translated into many languages, including Japanese, Chinese, Russian, French, Italian, Romanian, Greek, German, and Icelandic. He is currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincennes is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. He's lived all over the world. Here we go, people, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but now lives on a farm in rural Western Massachusetts, overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are more, wait for it, there are still more black-capped chickadees, dark-eyed juncos, and eastern screech owls than people. So, Mark, we all want to be in your backyard, or I think like forest, which is your backyard. What have you got for us today?
Yeah, a couple of screech owls, actually, which are beautiful creatures. This one's called Rough Magic with Disciples. Night brings the owls and the worms and every other creature day-locked into the rock. Nothing to fear now. Bless the mice and children. Bless all of green captivity, those frowning at their baubles. Look at the gambler smiling in his uncertainty, the purse of his lips. Look beneath the towel or the rift in the cerebrum. Look into the translucent skins of the saints. Shoot back from the hip in a plinth of holy passing. Go forth on this orb, slip between two sleeves, and straight into the maze or the lexicon. Find the seedless God, peel her like a banana. The disciples will tell you, it wasn't a bad supper, they will say. Step out of your time zone, beyond the sleeping alarm clock, into the cone of death, and find that pure plant sleep. So that's a little rough magic with disciples. And I'm now delighted to introduce the first of our featured readers today, Amit Majmudar, who is a poet, novelist, essayist, and translator. His latest books include God's Song, a verse translation of the Bhagavad Gita with commentary from Knopf in 2018, and the poetry collection What He Did in Solitary, also from Knopf. His work has appeared in various editions of Best American Poetry, The New Yorker, and the Norton Introduction to Literature, among other locales. Forthcoming books include the hybrid works Three Metamorphoses from Horizon and The Great Game Literary Essays from Acre Books last year, and a poetry collection tentatively titled In the Mother Tongue, coming from NOPFIN 2026. Amit is the former first poet laureate of Ohio. He's also a diagnostic nuclear radiologist in Westerville, Ohio, where he lives with his wife and 3 children. Welcome, Amit.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. And thank you to everyone who's here to listen. And thank you for inviting me here. Before I begin, how many minutes am I supposed to read?
About 10, 12. It's okay.
Okay, sure. So I was thinking about, so I did bring, What He Did in Solitary, which was my most recent poetry collection, but I kind of get bored reading the same poems over and over again. So I'm going to read you guys new stuff that has not been collected anywhere, and in some cases has not been published anywhere. And I thought that I'd begin because Cassandra shared such a beautiful prose poem and has such an interest in prose poetry. I thought I would share. I write in different forms and everything like that, but I also write the occasional prose poem. So this one is recently appeared. And it's called The Signal Fire. And I thought it would be nice to begin a poetry reading with this, because as you'll hear, it kind of has to do with sustaining a tradition, sometimes in solitude. And it has to kind of do with being a writer, even though it's obliquely about that. So this is called The Signal Fire. It is too cold to live at the top of the mountain where the kindling rests. Even down here at the base camp, you keep the fire going. Enough to boil snow, enough to read by. You ration blue-lined paper, creased and torn into thin strips. You write one line of the poem you are either composing or remembering. Stare at it. Roll it into a pill and swallow it. Sustenance enough to keep you from forgetting your duty and dispersing into the mountain air. You keep your gaze at the surrounding mountaintops. There are other signal keepers. So you have heard, or were born believing, or have told yourself. Hard to tell the difference after all these centuries. Steel gray is the brightest the sky gets, because other kinds of fires that do not speak but silence speech, have been burning. And after all these centuries, you too have forgotten the saffron of dawn, the saffron of dusk. Another verse crumples into another pill. You tend the cook fire in its mandala and wait for a fire on one of the surrounding peaks. Not a gong, not an air raid siren, not the grounded thunder of an avalanche, not the static crackle of either fireworks or Kalashnikovs. You have heard all of these, some of them more than once a day, but you know them for the noise. You have run out of paper strips. You remember nothing of what you wrote and ate and read and loved, because they compose you now. At last, with premeditated impulsiveness, you take off your threadbare coat and crack your tent pole over your knee. The cook fire crowns a makeshift torch. You sprint up the mountain, which shifts under your boots. It is made of bones, carpal dice, runic ribs, moth-filled skulls you recognize like your own face multiplied in a mirror maze. At the top of the mountain stands the shrine, with its giant bowl full of printed manuscript pages that bear everything you wrote and ate and read and love, one memory that composes you. A kiss of the torch, and they all go up, sacrificed. One by one, stretching into the distance in every direction, peak after peak lights up. You have ignited the signal you were waiting for. Though the city has been sacked, her citizens remain. We are reading and spreading the signal. We are still here. Thank you. I think that, sorry. So I think that, the next one I'll read is also a new one, and it kind of it's more of a political-ish poem, not necessarily a political perspective poem, but just about politics, and you'll hear. But anyway, it takes the form of a prospectus. Okay, so it's called Prospectus. We can strafe it for you wholesale, or village by village by village. Coup d'etat by appointment only. We charge a sliding scale of pillage and a flat rate of 5% for any mineral rights. We offer concierge democracy and humanitarian flights the cameras will love. Team members are certified conscience-free. Our statelessness is state-of-the-art. Black ski masks, dungarees, the uniform of any nowhere, no hot zone is too hot for. We outsource all assassinations to inner circle plotters, ensuring you have no foreknowledge of such a tragedy. The private jet that drilled the hillside, the limo dredged from the sea, neither do we. We don't exist. A myth, a militia, a meme. We never met, you never paid us. A rumor of graves, a dream. So then the next one I will read you is something I literally wrote yesterday. So this is hot off the press. And it's called The Prince of Tashkent. And it is about, it's kind of about just the nature of fantasy and self-delusion and all sorts of things like that. So it's called The Prince of Tashkent. Wait, said the Prince of Tashkent. The waltz paused, and his glitter-gleam mask went diaphanous, revealing an ashen complexion shucked of insouciant passion. I was never the Prince of Tashkent, your mannequin man, the scaffold of fashion, dancing a spell, casting a spell, then dashing in my garish barouche back to Tashkent. Friends, I'm a hobo on opiates, heartbroken, my palace a park bench in humble Hoboken, drenched by the rain as I dream this, but soaking this cordial dream up until I'm awoken by the well-meaning medics of downtown Hoboken, with a shake of my shoulder and shot of Narcan that spirits me back to my soulless park bench. Now gobble that Turkish delight. We are starving over in hopeless Hoboken, the stars dimmed by the fentanyl fog, the sentinel sob that darkens my chandeliers, my cavaliers, my ardent believers who fished me out of a trash can and made me, in precious pashmina, Prince of Tashkent. And I guess for my final poem, I will read a kind of a made-up form called a fugue. Obviously fugue is a form that exists in music and everything like that, but I've kind of evolved this little form that has to do with anaphora, and you'll hear that. And this one's called Late Imperial Fugue. And the fugue plays with the terms the barbarians, eunuchs, and the emperor. So if you've read Gibbon and the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, it has a lot of barbarians, a lot of eunuchs, and there's always an emperor. So this is called Late Imperial Fugue. Barbarian kings kneel on a floor of lapis lazuli. Eunuchs, with their ears pierced, watch from behind the throne. The emperor turns and turns his signet ring. He is the third emperor this year. And it's not even the Ides of March yet, titter the eunuchs. The barbarians demand more Reaper drones to fight the barbarians who aren't on the payroll yet. They're secretly horny for the eunuchs, whispering the emperor his orders with clove-warm breath. The court sculptor hurries to sculpt the emperor nostrils before the eunuchs switch this one out. The barbarians leave the toilets filthy, and the eunuchs, after a few dry heaves, hand the emperor a mop and gloves. The barbarians are his problem too. The eunuchs raise taxes to buy themselves more children. Each morning, the emperor takes his first bite of croissant in terror. What if, one day, the barbarians about face all their tanks? We would never, say the barbarian. You wouldn't dare, say the eunuchs. I'm Caesar, says the emperor, ruler of the free world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amit. That was wonderful. Unfortunately, we're missing Alexis Sears. Hopefully we'll catch up with her sometime soon. Next, we hear from Matthew Cooperman, who is the author of, most recently, Knots Disorder, Not Otherwise Specified, with Abby Kopang from Future Poem and Spool from Free Verse Editions, winner of the New Measure Prize. Matthew's other works include the image and text collaboration Imago for the Fallen World with Marius Lenene from Jaded Ibis, Still of the Earth as Arc, which does not move from Counterpath, Days from Salt Publishing, and Sacrificial Zinc from Pleiades, which won the Lena Miles Weaver Todd Prize. Matthew's also the author of 5 chapbooks: Disorder, Little Spool, Still, Perpetual, Words About James, and Surge. He currently teaches creative writing literature at Colorado State University and lives in Fort Collins with his wife, the poet Abby Kopang, and their 2 children. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you all for being here. And thank you, Amit. That was wonderful reading. And I'm sorry Alexis won't join us, but thank you to Ryan and Daniel. And Mark, thank you for asking for this, and to Jeffrey and Cassandra as well. I'm going to read from my newest book, Wonder About the, which just came out 6 months ago from Middle Creek Press. Thesis. I mean myself. Thesis. Like sky slung down from mountains in foaming water, it rolls. Like mountain scree, it rolls in river round the blue drain of gravity. It breaks at its wrists, gathers at its waists, fattens the meadows, swells and eddies in pools of lazy trout. It rolls on from the silver spine of the divide, split at Cameron, peaked at Diamond and Mahler, the Never Summers, Snowies, Rewa. It rolls on through canyon body, through glacier body gone. It rolls and tumbles granitic time, the molten turn and seam. It rolls on through release, the hands thrown open, outflow fields of alfalfa, sorghum, and wheat. It rolls on through ditches, arterial and flush. It rolls on to Greeley and 19th century promises, rolls with laughing peals of manifest destiny. Rain follows the plow, you just have to dig for wood and water. In speeches, it rolls to the South Platte and the longer roll-on roll to the Missouri, the Mississippi. It rolls on through name body, Hiniano, Iano, Arapaho, and Mogoichi, Noicha, Ute, and Far East Kiowa and Cheyenne. It rolls on through vanquished and mastered body, through Eaton and Pingree body, Larimer, Pitkin, and Koenig body, through money, and the nameless body of earth. Through forgotten names, unmarked graves, bleached cow skulls, behind the collapsed hay barn, it rolls through barbed wire, child mortality, bad governors, it rolls wild roses and ore. It rolls on in oil, the silent sea, One that came before was an after me. Like an open vein, like a sluice giant, it rolls on through cottonwood and willow body, through thistle and rabbit brush, rama and blue stem, through drought and illusion, and rolls on beyond us, the river flayed in moonlight. And this book really concerns the Kashilaputa watershed where I live, and it's the first of what I hope will be a number of series of books about Colorado. But it's taken me 20 years of being in Fort Collins and 30 plus years of living in Colorado to feel that I had the authority to write about this place. So the book is kind of a coming out of that of sorts. A River in Spring. Going to Legacy, a river in spring, thought what it is to mean in fluid pathways, seeing connections are on a constant basis, scale or hail of white water, perhaps a bit blind, my heart gets pulled to the surface of the river. The faraway lands nearby, a rabbit is noticed, geese flock up a dozen from Coreopsis, the scope of all flowering with moving center, so skillfully avoid seeing why. Why had I not looked, walked, and lingered every day so long ago, a he or she or they living along the river? Alongside it, trail or culvert, train bridge, a tag of rosas, a bicycle, blue with plastic bags caught in scouring elms, overhead, spider webs draping or spooling or noticing, bee thrum and hornet nest, the park weaves leaves, the river. Adjacent the long water plant detritus gas jet parking lot, now weave of roots appears, reappears through May snow. Cottonwood alder marl, the river throughout, receded 3 weeks, begins to rise, June rise, ahead of flash hail, alive from what's dead. Bacterial microphage, damselfly, browns are freckling the black sands of fire, past fire of countless and speechless. Leaves blown to ash, return again green, the river carries throughout. Alterations of weather, cloud, sun, cloud, the grass whitens, the bones of the mice the fox finds, and dies another season. Caught in different climes, the same place mortality, to call it bloom, celadon lichens akin to kin, or yellow flowering, yarrow, ramunculus, watch it grow, firewood and tansy, a nose for place. What is a river, and what is a season, and what is a reason of oil? A toil of oil, thirst, third landscape disturbance, alive and shimmering on the median. Today, watching with ears, the cheet of prairie dogs, burrows, gas to get gas. A rhetoric of monuments lingers, legacy. Longing to be sure, longing to be clear, offer on this planet a fire of speechless. The inland sea, a season, deposition of ferns and brackens, brachiopods. To get gas, go to the sea, the seashore down by the river. And much of the book takes up questions of the use of the river, both positive and negative. And one of the things that's happening in Colorado right now is we're really sort of, other than the Dakotas, we are ground zero for the fracking industry. Massive activity in Colorado. This is called 40 minutes, 40 degrees, 25 minutes, 23 seconds north, 104 degrees, 42 minutes, 32 seconds west. Or if anyone knows Colorado, really. That phenol, these rashes of family extreme, deficit holes for arsenic drillers, spontaneous practice tested near a goat, trade secrets legal that lubricant rub, of mortals a coil of metals and wells, that phenol, abortion, sensory extreme, heavy near drillers for even the horse, spontaneous poisoning for wastewater spread, extreme de-icing of dust-forming roads, heavy metal nosebleed tested the drillers, spontaneous arsenic considered in schools, hospitalized for nosebleeds, even the goat, a year's replacement for suspected rashes, spontaneous wastewater practiced for wells, suspected de-icing of horses on roads, family of secrets, tested child near a goat. Perhaps down there metals rubbed that phenol oil. Drillers for deficits died frequently lethal. Trade secrets lubricate sensory holes, spontaneous rashes, spontaneous drillers, spontaneous abortion in and around schools, suspected senses extreme near children, schools, many legals, a drilling fatigue, a sign down there among oils that phenol, spontaneous mortals coil near the test. Well, not all is gloom and doom in this place. And in fact, this is a gloriously beautiful place. And much of the book is also taken up with the challenge of finding wonder in this place. I'll read some from the center section here. Enter a field. Upon our eyes, our ears, the sense record, so full of taste and touch too. A finger recoils, spells out smells, the dream releases, the record rings, how a form for listenings, a plot for making, this cold November nearly gone, but not forgotten. I've just typed memento mori, my dear, how they linger, live in they, threads the very treadled world, why senses color me, now a larger faculty, help me chime in refracted ways, waves, particles of speech. I say it blue before the witness, letters minds mapping, days mind blend. Enter a field or enter the furrow, what seed sown between selves known, cells that think center each day, feel discreet, each mouth loves taste, taste to own, bitter and sweet, a passage papillae, laves and lingers in difference, different places on the tongue, a high bright orange point ting. It remains Monday, this magical thinking, centripetal recognition sees honing and hum. We are from a great ball we're standing within. Such are rooms, suasions awash, all housed in sense how soul is roundly ideational. At root, this tree falls silently. We've never seen it, such metempsychosis, the other side from my voice fields the final furrow. The apple ladder. I take seat where body bends, remembrance in habits of who attends, how the morning chairs bow, the morning light in sinews too, the sweetest tea inform the shareholders, what we share we hold, and what is high, lows, communicate the addresses to ourselves, a self-recurrent riffle of chi, my commodity flows to unwrap ease, set table high with resistant light, you, particular you, to shine across. A figure against a background, structure of all, excuse me, a figure against a background, structure of all perception. Is this reach in things, how they stand out and about? Next to Roger, within a pasture, green with clover, our riotous color. A sexual craving placed to lay, overheats, opens the nose, push me, pull you, these curves to the apple, and a mood appears, kin sniffing among constancies, irregularities, a pre-existence, insistent time, dog of mind, a fleeting lick. It is summer, sir. Love both sight and shadows flower, another day enslaves. I think I'll end with, there are a number of homages in the book, and one of them is to Lorene Niedecker, who is a poet of particular importance to me. This is called Transport. After lava, before glacier, once covered by a sea, the ore is carrier in others, right into the blood. Visible transfer, Ferris and Venus, through the canals, rains rain and bring it up from down, azoic life from not life, the water table set for lives, a granite slab, a gate, a gauge from core, ardor falls in iron, a liquid bar beneath the trembling sea. Agate stone, my own, I take from you, Lorene, this chalcedony shine on a creek, October near another explorer, on a different shore of ore, as complicit, the circuit in the blood, the same question, again and again. How molybdenum or resin or tannin, word work, the stain flushed to the surface of the hands. We are what the seas have made us, longingly immense. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Should we all be longingly immense? Next, we hear from Ryan Wilson, who is also editor-in-chief of Literary Matters and the author of In Ghostlight from LSU in 2024. His previous books include The Stranger World from Measure, winner of the Donald Justice Poetry Prize, How to Think Like a Poet, and Proteus Bound Selected Translations from Franciscan UP. His work appears widely in periodicals such as 32 Poems, Birmingham Poetry Review, First Things, 5 Points, the Hopkins Review, Image, Quarterly West, the Swanee, and the Yale Review. And his poems have been anthologized in Best American Poetry and Christian Poetry in America since 1940. Ryan teaches at the Catholic University of America and in the MFA program at the University of St. Thomas, Houston. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. I'm very pleased to be here. Can everyone hear me? Maybe give me a high sign, Cassandra, if you can hear me. Okay. Great. So I'm going to read from In Ghostlight, which came out on Wednesday. And I'm going to read 3 poems from the book that are all in a row and form a kind of hinge in the book's structure. The first that I'll read is the final poem in a sequence, and this is called September. Some flunkies from the faceless government have paved the dirt road over. Glossy cars go hissing past, anonymous as wind. The cornfields overgrown with worthless vetch. There are no neighbors swaying on wide porches as they once did. Wheat ears in a blue breeze. It's 20 years since I last came back home. The nearby houses sag, bleared, clabbered ruins. Kings now, stout crows sit throned atop the bowing telephone poles. Crazed wires score mute gray skies. Gone is the green argive, the live oaks lofted above the farmhouse, molting now, crouched small in tall brown grasses like a wounded hare this autumn. Gone, the weathered gable barn with its tin roof, where in the secret dark of childhood, I would trace my fingertips slowly across the rough mystery of iron tools older than any world my thoughts could hold. We go blind, dazzled in the swim of days, unless loss teach the soul to see all's strange. Clumps of scrub pine possess old garden plots. Our trellis for the muscadine stoops down now, overgrown with honeysuckle, still in bloom despite the cool. Soon I will go. As in boyhood, I pluck a silky blossom, yellow as an old photograph, and chilled, breathe deep the sick, sweet, selfless smell of change. The second poem that I'll read is indebted to the French symbolists generally, and specifically to particular poems by Baudelaire, Rimbaud, and Mallarmé. It has an epigraph from Mallarmé, Lève l'encre pour une exotique nature. The title is windy October night, waterside. Abandoned yachts and less immoderate skiffs, resigned in their rope webbing to the harbor's sulfide reek, still softly rock in starlit flooding and ebbing tonight, and sometimes, like age's vague what-ifs, rise toward the rickety dock which holds them restless captives far too often, on a poor excuse for a wave, and give a hollow knock, a wooden sound, the thud of a man in his grave awakening and pounding on his coffin uselessly. Think of the drowned anchors that smile now in the sediment of what's forever lost. Think of the toilet seats the hydrophytes have purfled and embossed with Byzantine designs, the fortune spent in coins, on wishes, nights like this, the rods fish caught, the rusting hulls of pleasure's swift excesses, the steel-toe boots, their laces undulating like Ophelia's loosened tresses, the grace of slow decomposition, skulls of lovers done debating hope's chance, the jetsam of our sunlit days all gathered now together in a realm where the celestial bodies seem themselves tenants and weather means nothing. All that is eternally sways in the green dark of a dream. The night wind lifts. With wavelets' supple plashes, the creaks of straining ropes, like old doors opening or closing, augur the coming of fresh hopes. So why should food forever smack of ashes? You swig your trendy lager. If loss, like logic, holds as axiom that life is misery, the membrane separating you from God's the present tense of be. So why trudge through the decades yet to come, the bleak iditarods of your tomorrows, glacial grind of years, when their brute apparatus of frostbite, wolves, snow blindness, and despair conspires to keep as status quo your face bejeweled with frozen tears. To leave, to go out there, to enter the eternal world of myth is simple. Just stop being. As soon as your few friends lose their last thought of you, which will prove freeing for them, you'll find yourself among, forthwith, the deathless things you've sought. In that subaqueous glow, the deep world must think rises and illumines the vacant moon. Perhaps the skeletons wish peace upon us humans, who fog our world with hopeful clouds of dust. Us wild-eyed, anxious ones who hear our deathless parts, souls, if you will, like children locked in a closet, pounding the door, pleading to be released. Perhaps, if one may posit a bold conjecture, we must learn to kill ourselves, or kill at least what ties us to the world, that we may know the peace of innocence, cool as a breeze through a hole in the smoky cortex. It's starting to make some sense. Jump off the dock. Jump, jump. No, not yet. No. The whirling silken vortex tomorrow promises is easier than passing through life's portal somehow. Two deaths diverge in every wood, and you must be mortal and die the slow death others would prefer. Let's call that love. Yeah? Good. Of course, we're kept alive by cowardice, but let's not say such things. For God's sake, they're children. Grow some pity. Think of the sufferings that, missing you, shattered some stranger's bliss. Now, turn to the glittering city behind you. Walk back down the dock and note that you're so fortunate to walk, and see with your own blessed vision, the world you might have quit, that sloping bank, dark tree line, those remote skyscrapers. Make the decision to walk the streets again, to be distracted. There, lovers flirt nonstop and money's made. Don't notice the lamppost, filigreed iron, its top flowering, to which the moths are so attracted, houses an eager host who's tidying his home, making exquisite Baroque designs for all the winged things whose maddened little flight might lead them soon to call on him by chance or error. Don't ask, is it for all who seek the light? So the last poem I'll say for you is called The Feast of the Epiphany. Of course, this is celebrated based on the journey of the Magi who were following the star in the east. The Feast of the Epiphany. Hard going, yes, for an astronomer, a man of science. The cold journey long, especially for three such as we were. Scatterbrains, moon calves, heads full of sphere song, kings of forgotten realms, perhaps not extant for all we know. Applying esoteric terms of azimuths, nuances of the sextant to striking tents and goading pachyderms, we lumbered day and night through desert places, incarcerated by pain, hunger, thirst. Our one hope, that hope held, in fact, no basis. What doesn't kill us only makes us stranger. Among the oxen, sheep, and pigs, we cursed our charts and stared, lost, starving at the manger. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, we hear from Daniel Tobin, who is the author of 9 books of poems, including From Nothing, which was the winner of the Julia Ward Howe Award. The Stone in the Air, his suite of versions from the German of Paul Celan, and Blood Labours, named one of the best poetry books of the year by the New York Times and the Washington Independent Review of Books. Dan's poetry has won many awards, among them the Massachusetts Book Award, the Merenjoff Award, and fellowships from the NEA and Guggenheim Foundation. Dan's trilogy of book-length poems, The Mansions, is just out from Four Way Books, so get your hands on it. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks to everybody for coming. And thank you so much, my fellow readers this afternoon. I'm sorry Alexis couldn't be here, but it's been thrilling to be reading with these wonderful poets. And also wonderful to see in the Zoom rooms some familiar faces and some from a while back. I'm going to read from The Mansions, and I'm going to read from, it's a trilogy of book-length poems. So I'm going to read from the final movement of the trilogy, which is called At the Grave of Teilhard de Chardin. Teilhard de Chardin, as many of you probably know, was a Jesuit priest, a mystic, and a scientist. And this particular movement explores his life. I'm going to read from the middle of 3 movements that comprise the last book. And these are all in the voices of people who knew Teilhard, some of whom will be familiar to you. So I'm going to read 5 sections. This section is called Hands, and it's in the voice of George Barber, an associate of Teilhard's in China when he was digging there as an archaeologist. To fall forward stage by stage till the end of the world, that's what he would say, my old friend, with his kit box and breviary, his pack of jobs, him chain smoking them year in, year out from Tientsin to Transvaal, field notes and skulls, his eyes keen for every jigsaw bit of bone, Sinanthropus, Australopithecus, Miocene, Pleistocene, all the way to this latter infancy, this thinking envelope of consciousness expanding he held like a living net, one mind woven with all minds, drawn to the ahead. At Chukutien, I'd use crayons to track sediment with colors on my notepad. He would keep gradations like prisms in his head, drawing sharp as photographs. Nights at the fire, we would talk of his god of tension that carries the species on through every random spur. Like that time on the steps of the Yamen when a mule struck him with its hind leg on the temple, the blister the size of a bloody pigeon's egg. He quoted Li Po. It's as hard to travel in Sichuan as to climb to heaven. And when my son died, near his own death, he wrote, I am convinced that what looks like meaningless catastrophe transforms itself into blessing. And even those graves at Singling, no stones, no names. Look at the hands, spit painted on cave walls, as if raised to brace a fall. No, they're moving. They're making their way through rock. This next section is called Ensemble, and it's in the voice of someone named Emil Lysant, who was a fellow Jesuit in China with Teilhard. And as you got from that, I think you know that Teilhard was, as I said, a scientist, and Emil Lysant was, in a sense, a competing scientist who was at odds with Teilhard quite a bit. Ensemble. The language of wings, even in the hold of my nets, eluded me, was the limit for this listener. Swallowtails in brushlands, when we'd leave behind the concession to venture upon the Great Wall into the Ordos. And Te, as the locals called him, always thinking, working borderlands between spheres of knowledge, his science, his mysticism. Strange to watch him eyeing the escarpments where Pei found the treasured skull in travertine, so proficient in the past, so pitched to the future, what he saw to be the endless distances where across infinities of scale, the whole ensemble, risen out of the random, from instinct into thought, converges to its final cause. As for me, I collected and prayed, expert in the language of what's required, and built the needed thing in the time it was needed. My museum, born out of the practicum of expedition, not the wisps of vision. No wonder we sometimes nearly came to blows. Still, technically, we're one blessed to sit down, see down the bottom niece of things, see through the layers like elemental parts of a language, words, syllables, letters, to glimpse at once a substantial form that had wrested mountains from the near nothing below their base, sentience from loaded chemical dice, persons from bacterium. Would one not kneel in praise? Teilhard was a visionary, and of course, he was a very optimistic person. He believed, he actually foresaw, from some sense, the internet, the World Wide Web, but he also believed that we were all headed for a great future. I have my doubts about that one, but this next one's in the voice of Marguerite Marie Gigit Desjardins, his sister, who was very ill most of her life, and this is called Mirror. When I read the draft of his Milieu, I knew the mirror of my life in his had found new life in it. That sickness never comes to diminish, but quickens God's own life in us in God's life. As he reflects, death's the sum of all our diminishments, though we overcome death by finding God in it. And so it was for Alberic, Louise, for Francois, Gabrielle, for us all. And my own affliction, a kind of brute spectacle that begets the inner flowering that was my life at Sarsenet, as the Sacred Heart blazed in the foyer, as it did when we were children. My body bedridden 30 years, my life his dreamt imitatio Christi, while my dear brother crisscrossed continents, unerringly errant, arrow to my base on a compass rose. As in de Hook's imagined Delph, two figures travel in mirror passages, one away from, one into the light, or like mirror particles, chiral, contrarily handed, light again invariant until its symmetry shatters ahead. So it is in this looking glass world of scattered entanglements. When I died, it was as though he was looking at Earth from an immense distance, blue atmosphere, the green of vegetation, then ever more luminous, thought itself, then ever deeper, the darkness of suffering, growing sharper with consciousness, the widening inflorescence, and God gazing out, gazing in at the flung reflections. So I'll just finish off with two more of these. This next one is called Labyrinth, and it's in the voice of Gabrielle Marcel, who was not so convinced of necessarily a positive future. Labyrinth. What did my rival call them, this host of living forms? A labyrinth, incoherent, a maze of births and deaths, ontogeny, phylogeny, until one perceives the thread he called love, at the heart of the universe, not sentiment, but activity, with its groping into mind. And with human mind, the creation climbing on ahead. Provided a summit exists, and it is worth the climb, what mountaineer, he believed, wouldn't risk a fall? Humans to be humans must try everything to the end. I balked at his Nietzschean metaphors, his Promethean Christ, his eclipses of God, and brooked the doctors of Dachau as countermand to his flimsier figurations, as if spirit could be wrung from a rabid consciousness. Yet I too believed in humanity on the way, unbound to wishful nets of furtherance, and founded on hope of the present moment, like a sudden clearing opening in communion with another. Take for my labyrinth this very now as the floor before you, 11 circuits woven into quadrants, and step into its foliate cross as if it were the outward print of your own itineracy, and let the center draw you to itself, its 6 rosettes, the soul of your awakening, approached, departed. Spiral bonds of snail shells, galaxies, blood, and brain, a cast of the great rose window, and our harrowing. And I'll finish with Thread, which is in the voice of Paul Valéry. Where sails like doves flocked the ocean's glittering roof, that's where I saw them swimming like refugees to shore from the great foundering liner of their church, the faith battened against the death of God. I mean, those faithful who too took as irrefutable the depthless terminus of this modern horizon. The abyss of history is big enough for us all, I am unafraid to say, for I regard myself one, as it were, founded on doubt. But the delightful Teilhard, from the first with Boole at the museum, then our talks, I had to admire his spirit of adventure, to invent a faith inside his faith, Christ as a sort of cosmic self, the God of infinity toward which one must tend, where the thread of the inward meets the thread of the outward, So always we find ourselves at the exact point where all the forces of the universe meet to weave the outcomes God desires. I, contra, am post hominem, and hold conscious existence a zero from which we must diverge, and so cast my lot with an invariant God, Einstein's, even if that God is dead. In the end, the resurrection is the only dogma. Our bodies death hollowed, emptied, to be remodeled in the fullness, even if I don't believe it. Always it comes down in the end to my graveyard by the sea, as to the valley of dry bones, a skull-grinning jest in a molecular game, or something like light through a high, windowless sky, lovingly endless. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Dan. So, what a wonderful show tonight. Very profound. And Amit, thank you so much. Matthew, Ryan, Dan, and Alexis will catch up with you later. What a wonderful show. Let me just draw in one of my co-hosts, Cassandra. Thoughts, inspirations?
Yeah, I always find the show's really inspiring. It makes me want to go and think about what they've read and experiment with it in prose poetry.
Yeah, there was a lot of
symbols
lot of
today.
a lot of erudition in there. A lot of
Religion,
a lot of erudition, a lot of music.
spirit, religion, music, for sure.
Yeah. Jesus, the cosmic stealth fighter. Something, that's what I heard, Danny.
Didn't the evil empire like freeze him or something like that? Jeff, over to you to
All right.
shake them
Thank
up.
you, everybody. And now for the great part of the Lit Balm series, we have 4 special readers tonight, I believe. If I let anybody out, let me know in the chat if you could. And we'll just do them in the order they came in. We'll start off with John Wisick. John.
Thank you. Thank you. This is the story that started out the whole Morris pill bottle sensation, and I will read the opening, and the link to the rest of it is in the chat in case you want to read the rest. It's called "The Cashier Always Rings Twice." I was sitting in my basement office at 4th and Drucker with nothing to keep me company but a bottle of rye whiskey and a bad attitude. Business was slow. It was already the 10th of the month, and Mom was bugging me about the rent. Then an American black bear walked in. She had a broad skull and narrow muzzle covered with dense underfur and long, coarse guard hairs. "Is this the Pill Bottle Detective Agency?" That's right. I tilted back my fedora to get a better look at her. "Morris Pill Bottle, owner and general manager, at your service." Being the only employee, that pretty much made me both, but knowledge is power, so I didn't tell her that. Morris, huh? I thought detectives were supposed to have manly names like Dick, Rod, or Johnson. "If you wanted to discuss Freud's theories," I said, "you'd be seeing Dr. Feigenbaum at Drucker and 4th, or taking Intro to Psych at the Antelope Valley Community College. What gives?" "My name is Ursula Fogbottom. I think somebody followed me here." "Tall guy in khaki pants and a pale blue shirt?" "Yeah." Ursula sat on her haunches. "That's David Attenborough. He won't bother you." I poured a shot of whiskey into a clean glass and slid it over to her. "I don't get many bears in here." "At these prices, no wonder." Ursula wrapped her meaty paws around the glass but couldn't get the hang of lifting it. "I'll ask you again, what gives?" "I'm hosting a banquet and need someone to pick up some tofu, broccoli, and oyster sauce at the grocery store." She tapped her short, rounded claws on my desk. "I propose to pay you a tidy sum to do my shopping." "Just how tidy are we talking about?" I asked. $5. "That doesn't even fold my laundry." 10. "Still leaves a lot of dirty dishes in the sink." 12. What about the lime stains in the shower? 20. You drive a hard bargain, Mr. Pillbottle. Ursula Fogbottom stood and extended her paw. Do we have a deal? I shook and watched her walk out the door. She had the full figure of someone who'd foraged berries and raw salmon in preparation for a long winter snooze. Smart mammal, but she got one thing wrong. I drove a Hyundai. I buckled my snub-nosed 45 under my trench coat and went shopping. I grabbed a basket from inside the sliding doors. The dispenser of sanitizing cloths was empty, so I took my chances with the residue left over from employees desperate for a tilapia fillet or carton of chicken tenders on their way home from the daily grind of spreadsheets, corporate mission statements, and cold calling consumers to sell extended warranties for the napkin rings they bought sometime during the Clinton administration. The produce section was a collection of afterthoughts from America's meat-based diet, a cornucopia of dietary sermons ignored by children and adults alike. I found the broccoli between the Brussels sprouts and button mushrooms. Only 2 pieces remained. The florets were yellow as a Bedouin's urine, and the stalks as limp as an 80-year-old watching Barney the dinosaur while getting a root canal from Cinderella's stepsisters. Some guys might be into that, but I wasn't, especially at $8.99 a pound. The tofu was the ugly duckling in a flock of tempeh, hummus, vegan hot dogs, and impossible beef Wellington. I collected 2 packs, along with a bottle of Lee Kum Kee oyster sauce from the Asian section. When I returned to produce for one last look, the broccoli was gone.
Oh no, say it ain't so. That was kind of Ursula, it's like a bear, right? You had
Indeed.
Yep, there you go. I got it, man. All right. Thank you, John. All right. Let's move on to Lit Balm stalwart, the indefatigable DeWitt Henry. DeWitt.
I want to read the ending of a long poem, and I think it carries everything you need to know, except that it's a visit to my brother-in-law, who's a conservative rabbi in Miami and who has cancer. My brother-in-law, Dan, a conservative rabbi, asked about Shakespeare, about fate in Romeo and Juliet. Was this justice? Innocent sacrificed by a greater power to punish their parent. In turn, I asked about the meaning of shofars, and he seemed happy to explain. Shofars were sounded to awaken souls, especially on Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, when believers examine their deeds and seek atonement, and Yom Kippur, 10 days later, when God's judgment is sealed. As the horn takes in breath at one end and sends out the other, he suggested, so God replaces judgment and mercy and blessings for the coming year. There were 4 ritual blasts, he added, always to be blown in order. He could show me tomorrow. Our return flight was early, and he'd be glad to drive us at 6 a.m. No need for Uber. Our luggage in trunk. He wanted me in front and Connie in back. But as I moved to get in, there was a curled, polished ram's horn in my seat. It was maybe 8 inches from bell to curb, then straight up another 8 to the tip. Its grain was cream on tan, smooth and shiny. I got in and held it, thinking it was for show, the rabbi's personal shofar. But Dan said it was his gift for me, except I'd have to learn the blast, and he'd test me later on the phone. As he drove, he explained, you purse your lips for a farting sound, except no tongue. I tried, just air. He took it and held it with his right hand as he drove. Our windows were down and he sped through a roundabout. He blew his whack out his window, louder than car horns. Okay, you try. Handed it back. I puffed it like a trumpeter and puffed, surprised by a rich, full-throated blah. You got it? I think he got it, Dan sang for My Fair Lady. 2 years later, Dan's phone wouldn't answer for days. His younger brother, Ray, flew down to check, and with police and medics broke open his door and rushed him to the hospital, conscious but too late to save. He died 2 nights later. Connie, vaxxed, boosted, and tested for COVID, flew down alone to clean out his apartment and help with the Shiva and funeral. I followed the graveside service on Zoom. Connie, Ray, Larry, Elon, and Ari, 2 of Dan's sons, and one close rabbi friend spoke, praising Dan's religious nature, his learning, his help to countless congregants, and his leadership in interfaith work. Life had held rough waters for you, Connie eulogized, but you loved the ocean in all its glory. While aching at things lost, your pride was with your children. You know, I remember him confiding while depressed. I still believe in God. I've never doubted my faith. I keep the shofar on my desk. From time to time, I raise and sound it to his memory.
Oh, that was beautiful. Yes. There it is. Look at that. Oh, come on, do it. You can do it. And it was sounding good. Thank you, DeWitt. All right. That was beautiful. I have to get a shofar for my shofar. All right. Thank you very much. And now for another stalwart. I have Cindy on the list. Am I skipping anybody here? Good.
Yeah, I wrote to you. There is Joe,
Okay,
Steve,
that's good.
Jaya, and Dominique, as well as Cindy and Bob.
All right. So Joe, ready? Let's hear it for Joe. Safety.
I am. Thanks to all the readers. I wanted to say that I attempted to do justice to Matthew's new book in the next issue of Rain Taxi. So check that out. I probably failed miserably at capturing the wonders of that book, but I did want you to be aware of it. So this is another in a sequence of poems that I have been writing about William Blake, because I'm in a group that is reading and rereading Blake. And as it happens, it has a black bear in it, John. So this is what this sounds like. This is the divine vision. Blake outside the Black Bear Diner, sharing a bus stop bench with a metaphysical young woman whose first language isn't English. How can I articulate this? So sane. An oral consciousness operating with ambivalence, not subject to the laws of contradiction. So much stimuli in the environment distracts us from the necessity of being gentle to ourselves. Uranus square ascendant, unusual relationships, brief, startling, the divided path to apocalypse. Night 7, either another class among the Zoas and their emanations, or reflections on the art of representation as the fallen state grows more elaborate. This is the divine vision. Thanks.
All right, Joe, the divine vision. That's what we want, right? All right. Next up, we have Dominique Heck, another stalwart. Dominique.
Right. Hello. So I'd like to read a poem entitled Five Bells, after Kenneth Lesser, who was an Australian poet. Five bells. An inverted slice of sky falls into waves with diamond quills. In the fiction room, the depth of night disgorges its obscurity, and the cold that numbs gradually lays its acid tongue on the back of my neck. The rhythm of the swell rhymes with my pulse. Heart beating in shadow, I lean into the dark. Energy all around laps at my ears. First star, ebullience, my body soars inwardly, out of control, overflow of limits, slows. My hand holds back the bleeding moon, hovers over phantoms, abolishes perspective. The uncanny feeling that the hand is writing, tracking the emergence of matter from before words. I listen for the sound of fish gills whispering on the shivering breeze. Rush of breath, dull anguish, ready to drown desire. Quiver, scuff of letters, graffiti, ink, chrysalis, calligraphy. Down at the curving wharf, the ferry, yellow and green and wooden, chugs away to the north. Some say you had no ticket, but pockets full of grog. Heaving rain bursts like violent sobs. Disgorgement, waves clamor, reflections from the deep, a wind that doesn't dry. It's thirsty, rattles invisible sails, an intoxication of possibilities. Time deep enough to sink in ships over the horizon, 5 bells ringing from a vessel at its moorings. No witness to the engulfment of the body clad in your tattered raincoat. Clatter of glass bottles. Night drinks all, but you are still thirsty. The skyline flattens. The bed of an eager sea claims you like a mother, gathers you in a swell of stars. The harbor quivers with foam. Sydney gorged with water. You, mouthless, flesh, fishy, silt. Your legend, tongue-tied, beat of time. Thank you.
How lovely, as we say in Sydney. Yes, thank you. All right. Next up, here's somebody who can write a prose poem when she wants to, and another stalwart from Lit Balm, Cindy Hockman.
Yeah, but today isn't the prose poem day because someone mentioned anaphora. I think I used to live next door to someone named Anaphora, but that's something different. So I dragged out one of my old I Am the Girl poems that employs anaphora. And it just happens to have a bear somewhere in it. Who knew? I am the girl. I am the girl who sits in the corner. I am the girl who still sucks her thumb. I am the girl who rattles the saber. I am the girl who can knock your lights out. I am the girl who cuts her losses. I am the girl who swallows her pain. I am the girl with the gangrenous fingers. I am the girl with the ice water veins. I am the girl who rides your coattails. I am the girl who drinks your cocktails. I am the girl who runs with scissors. I am the girl who plays well with bears. And I think that's a good segue for our next reader.
Although I think Jeff might have forgotten Vijaya.
I did, but
That's okay.
okay. But I don't see her. Oh, there she is. Okay, let's please welcome Sadea.
It's Vijaya. Hi, can you see me and hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Vijaya, and I would like to share how many poems are we allowed to share? One?
Fortunately, it's just one
Okay.
short one.
One short one. Okay. Let me just bring this up. Okay. Electric grave retaining walls. Something I wrote several years ago, actually. Okay. When the lights on the ground dim the lights in the sky, and the sound of deep silence is silenced by deep sound, the collective sounds of human and non-human in dizzy dance and spirals of movement from home to work to play, to home to work to play, under electric lights or inside cars, or on electric trains or inside buses. Then the city raises her head and looks around, a wraith of beauty, a terror to nature, raised to the ground, except in parks and sidewalks. Then the city peers in at vacant lots and at junkyards, at the lost child in a lonely alley seeking home, at the bullies beating up a teenager, at the dog racing up and down the streets, collarless and ownerless, lost, helpless and frightened, at the two Vietnamese women waiting patiently at the bus stop, clutching their plastic shopping bags, wearing their trauma lightly like a little parasol over their heads, a little stooped, talking quietly, at the bald man with a gold chain, a cross tattooed on his bare arms, standing there at the Church of St. Francis, staring blankly at his iPhone, tears pouring down his face as he leans against the retaining wall. At the 20-something boy man who walks his dog every day and whose father tells everyone that he's sick of his son thinking he's some John Lennon type or something, with his peace and love and guitar playing. At the flutter of girls who walk unself-conscious and full of beauty and foolishness, in short skirts or short skirts, short shorts or short skirts, giggling, chewing gum and checking their phones, while grown men lounging against walls check out their legs. The city peers in at all these and into houses where things happen that should not happen. And the city turns her head away, goes to see the homeless man under the bridge, who smiles toothlessly at her and offers her his donut, which she takes, and she takes him as well with her into the land of all the forgotten dreams and forgotten souls and discarded light bulbs and broken people. She shepherds him to that land holding his hand, eating his proffered donut, and leaves him there to sleep a long time, perhaps never to wake. And the city goes to bed in the 1 hour between night and day, while she dreams another life that's lived between her streets and her alleyways, her parks and her highways. She sleeps and dreams away her whole concrete existence, vanishing in a gathering cloud of dust and desolation, while the sea advances, ready to claim her as his own. The retaining walls start to crumble, and the city smiles in her sleep and drowns.
All right. Thank you, Vijaya. Where are you calling in from?
Boston, well, Medford, Boston, basically.
All
Massachusetts.
right. Mark's neck of the woods.
I was named Poet Laureate of Medford this past summer.
Congratulations.
So I thought I should have just mentioned that. Thank you. Yeah, I know, like a
All
little
right.
bit of like, woo, recognition. Blah, blah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Now I'm muted myself. Here we go. Now we're going to wrap it up with our regular anchor here, the one and only Supremo Surrealist Prozola, Mr. and publisher. We were talking before, Bob Heeman. Please welcome Bob Heeman.
Oh, you almost made me Bob Holman then. Okay, this is from my structure series. Incapable, yet doing, seeing no fault in it, not understanding the difference, but making it different because and in response. And it goes on, stopping only to look inside of the blackened room, seeing, of course, nothing and naming it as such, remembering it also, but the room too large to point the thing out, and the naming and swallowing of it continue until each thing is without resolution, and the end balances only for a moment before it too is gone without a trace.
Oh, so true. Thank you, Bob. And
Thank you.
Mark, you're going to announce next week's
Oh, yeah,
Dynamite
for
reading?
sure. We got lots of interesting things going on. First off, next week we have Jordan Davis, Lydia Cortez, Don Yorty, Prince A. McNally, and Nada Gordon. And on March 2nd, we have the Prose Poetry Show, which includes Celia Bland, Meg Pokras, David Swan, and Jeff Friedman. So please join us for that. But before we leave, I'm going to read you one more little thing. And it's kind of a love poem. So she, beside her ghost, from slumber and sleep, from this image on a dial, an invented climate inside the secret chambers where the owls bring their mates, where the adventurer piles up his grand escapes. She beside her ghost, with the index fingers of a saint, trying for the woods, she who grazes the windowsill in this hollow curvature of earth, in the center of the silence. Hamlet sits in his tree. So she. Thank you so much, everyone, for an amazing show. We will see you hopefully next week on Saturday. Should be fun and exciting, and at least as exciting as it was the show before this one. Anyway, thanks, everyone. Lots of love and poetry. Have a beautiful weekend. Cheers.
All right.